Looks like you're going to have to take over Spirit too, Marco.
Hi everyone, it's your boy Zach, and geez, it's May and it's still not hot out. Okay, I'm not going to complain. Anyway, so Rob Liefeld is on a break from his podcast, which is going to let me at least catch up with recent ones. So I started listening to his last podcast from a couple days ago, and man, I got the thing is called like The Collapse or The Fallout or something like that. And I was like, I saw a comment yesterday where someone says, I have old man anger fatigue. It's like, I can't take it. If you're angry, it better be like about cancer or something. Like, I don't, because there's like a couple of different ways that they tackle it, but it's always the same motivation and the same exact point, is that comics is in trouble or broken or dying because it isn't the exact same way it was when they were 12 or in some cases 22. It's this ridiculous myth that Marvel always has to be the number one company, and X-Men always has to be the number one franchise, and Art Adams always has to be like the most popular artist. And it's just like, what are we doing here? Like, there aren't any YouTube channels. It's like, TV is dying because Fall Guy isn't in the top 10. And I'm not talking about that movie from a year or two ago. I'm talking about, it's like, there hasn't been an I Love Lucy television universe show in 50 years. Like, I give TV and streaming 5 years tops, and then it's going to completely collapse, because, Bob Barker isn't on The Price is Right. So, they come at it from a couple of ways. There's like the ghoulish ones where it's like, you guys, something amazing happened. People got fired. Isn't that great? I mean, I'm so sad. Oh, I'm so sad. We get I've got a plan. I've got a plan every day. I was joking with a friend, like, it's like a newspaper headline. Man who's never eaten an avocado has a 14-step plan to rescue the avocado industry. It's a lot of people who are bragging that they haven't read a comic in 5, 10, 20 years, and they have all these plans about how to save the industry. I have an idea. Why don't you actually read comics? That would be amazing. Myths upon myths upon myths upon myths of doom and gloom and everything's dying. And by the way, I ask this about every year or so, and quite honestly, it's never really led to a permanent expansion of the channels. I'm looking for suggestions on comics channels you can guess the ones I'm sick of, but every time people give alternatives, it's always like, oh, you should watch this guy. He talks about George Tuska comics. I'm like, that's not what I'm talking about. And they also always recommend these, like, I don't even necessarily have a problem with them. They're just like all these like collectors guys, like near mint collectibles. They always look like, they're always like these beefy East Coast guys who look like they used to be school bullies. It's like, hey, in collector news, dork number one is the most popular. It's shooting through the stratosphere. I used to beat up dorks in high school, but now I make money off them. Yeah, I made money off them back in the day, shaking them down for the lunch money. But like, they're always wearing jerseys. Like, why are you wearing jerseys all the time? I thought that was just Kevin Smith. Like, that's just like a beefy East Coast thing. You just wear jerseys every day of the year. But yeah, I don't want some super niche, like, Vinnie Coletta, you know, appreciation channel. You know the type of stuff I like. I like Perch. I like Casually Comics. I started listening in like TikTok, you know, bite-sized form to this Escape Pod podcast. But yeah, just it's like when I see or hear or know that someone's around 50 or older, it's like there's a stopwatch and we're just going to get a couple minutes and they're going to piss me off saying something just stupid as hell. Just, oh, the industry's dying because George Perez isn't drawing Teen Titans anymore. Like, what is that? Things change. So if you're wondering about the images, what you're seeing right now in the video, it's a thumbnail of what if the original Marvel bullpen was the Fantastic Four. So this came out, I think, around 1980, and the original Marvel bullpen, which is actually like, you know, about Marvel, was timely, and then for a while they were Marvel, but they were just doing like reprints and like weird alien and romance comics. And then, like 1961, they start really being like modern Marvel. But at the time, this was like, they were talking about 20 years ago. It's like, remember the original Marvel bullpen? And it was all like nostalgia. And it was only 20 years. That would be like being nostalgic for like, did I say that word? Nostalgic. Not nostalgic, right? Perch said facsimile instead of facsimile in a video recently, and I still haven't gotten over it. It's like facsimile, facsimile, facsimile. Anyway, so you understand my point. You know, in just the first 20 years of Marvel, there was so much change that basically everything was different. There was a whole new crew, it was a different editor-in-chief. Geez, they went through like 7 editors-in-chief in the second decade of the company being around. Different things were popular, and they just kind of rolled with it. I was watching one of the new channels I like, which is weird because I'm not a huge Conan the Barbarian fan, but there's a really good channel focused just on Conan the Barbarian comics. And so he's talking about, you know, Roy Thomas, whose hair, the very thin, like golden hair that like Roy Thomas, Hulk Hogan, and Tom Petty have. I don't know, like it freaks me out. Boomhauer, that shit freaks me out. Anyway, so I always get like skeeved out every time I think of Roy Thomas because he has that extremely thin golden hair that some white people have. Stanley was talking about sword and sorcery, and Roy was joking. It was like, Stan didn't know what sword and sorcery was. They kind of tried it, and it was crazy the amount of money you could get the rights for. I think they had to send the rights owners every issue like $200. Like that was the cut that the estate of Robert E. Howard got. And those Marvel Conan stories were sold amazingly well. But yeah, Stan, you know, he was around 60 at the time. He'd been doing comics since the 40s. He didn't know what sword and sorcery even was. But he saw this weird kid, Roy Thomas was probably about 22, with creepy, thin, golden hair. And he's just like, okay, whatever. This guy seems to know about this Conan thing. I'm not doing the Stanley voice. So we're going to roll with it. And he wasn't like, no, we're doing, you know, the Wizard. You know, we're doing the Invaders. I mean, they brought the Invaders back, but there was never an insistence by Stan, who was in his 50s at the time, that Marvel and comics just had to be the way they were when he started, you know, 30 years prior. Stan was very open to change and evolving and handing off the reins. And these people are just using the reins to choke the horse. Talking about the glory days. And you can't even nail it down. When was the perfect time with Marvel? Was it the 1960s? Was it the 70s? Was it the 80s? Was it the 90s? I saw the Comics Drake has a video. It's like 1996, the worst year in comics. And I remember 1996 real well, and I'm not necessarily going to argue it. No, it was a rough time. It was one of the things that really bothers me is all these guys in their 50s. They'll do this like state of grace. We've fallen from a state of grace. And then they will hold like the early 1990s sales. It's like, this is what the sales should be. It's like, that was a bubble. You want things to be a bubble that's going to pop in just a few years, which is what it did? That was clearly a bubble. You can't hold people. It's like, why aren't you selling, it's like saying, it's like, oh, your brother's a salesman. He sold all this stuff. He was on cocaine. And then he had a heart attack and died at the age of 28. Like, that's the metric you're going to freaking measure me against? So things change. Old men need to learn how to deal with it. Old men used to be able to deal with it just fine. One of the things I love about New Gods, Fourth World, that whole era, Jack Kirby was my age. He was early 50s, back when early 50s was old as fuck. Go look at him in his early 50s. He looks 75. And he would talk with that crew, and I have issues with that crew, that he hung out with, Mark Vanier and all those guys. But he would basically say, like, hey, the hippie thing's popular. Maybe I should do like a team like hippies, Like that's how you get the forever people. It's like, there's a lot of, like war, anti-war. So he kind of wove that in with Highfather and Orion and Mr. Miracle and Darkseid. And he was 52. And he was able to just say, like, oh, I've been kind of doing, Challengers of the Unknown type of stuff. And that stuff's kind of old, and I don't want to be old, so let me try something new. And his take on, he put hippie stuff in everything. You had those guys in the Jimmy Olsen book, they had all these, like, drag race cars in a giant forest. I don't remember what they were called, but that was actually a lot of fun. So he was dealing with, like, hippie biker gangs and hippies and, just the anti-war movement. And he was dealing with the modern world at the time. And he was adjusting, and he made great stuff. I think I'm repeating myself at this point. Boy, this one patch of grass, I can just never get it good. It's all green now, but it's just 5 different types of weeds. Okay. Anyway, trying to think if I have any other points to make. Yeah, like, being old didn't used to be as sad, as pathetic as it is now. And those people actually looked old, like old. Now people don't look that bad. You're 50, you kind of look like you did when you were 35, but, like, everything is like, we need George Tuska back on Fantastic Four. Like, what is this? Stan Lee didn't do that stuff in his 50s. Jack Kirby didn't do that stuff in his 50s. You're in your 50s now. You look 20 years younger than they did at the same age, but your minds are, like, crusty. I think I mentioned this anecdote in, I think it was a video I decided not to upload. It's from a couple days ago. It was just too angry and I was rambling. But there was a study of nuns at a convent. And they had agreed that when they died, their brains would be studied for Alzheimer's research. What it turned out is, like, most of these nuns had Alzheimer's. They actually had really bad Alzheimer's. But they didn't, so they had the physical effects on the brain of the deterioration. But they did not have the behavioral or emotional or cognitive decline, because the brain is very dynamic. It can reroute pathways. So even with this old brain that was literally, like, shrinking and crusting and having, like, holes in it, they were still active because they took care of each other in their old age. Like, they weren't sent somewhere else. They were just a bunch of old dykes. Is anyone offended by that? It's not an insult. Nuns are just a bunch of lesbians. Does anyone not know that? Okay, so nuns are a bunch of lesbians. So it was a bunch of old lesbians who didn't have a family, but they had a found family within their convent. So when you got old, they didn't send you somewhere. You just kind of were still active, but you were really old, You might just, do something with the collection plate at Mass or something like that, or you just sweep. The point was they were always active, they were always engaged, they were always interacting. One of the points they even made is they were still getting in little fights and tiffs with their sisters in the convent, like who, didn't put the cap on the toothpaste. Or my personal pet peeve, the people who don't squeeze out the sponge after you're done with it. Like, you just fully saturated for days, like you live in an alternate world where mildew doesn't exist. Like, walk me through this. So you grab a dry sponge, you wet it, you clean, you do whatever. It seems like you wet it again, and then you just put it there. Or you're gonna wash another dish and you just forgot. Anyway, so my point is, it's not just you shouldn't be old and crusty and hate everything new, because that's lame. The point is, it's actually very unhealthy to get set in your ways, to not do new things, to not be dynamic, to just say, I want everything done the way we did when we were doing the Lindy Hop and Charles Lindbergh was circumnavigating the globe. Like, no, there's new stuff out there. I mean, these freaking New Jersey meatheads can get behind dork. They're like dorks. I miss beating the shit out of them. They're always so beefy. Why are you so beefy? There's so much inflammation in like every part. Your ears are fat. How do you have fat ears? I don't know. But anyway, being old is bad for your health. Like mentally old, just not adjusting, not dynamic, not learning, not growing. Just everything failed. If you quadruple the budget of Supergirl, it'll lose $1 billion. Well, what if you double that again? Oh my God, I never thought about it. I could go tell people Supergirl's going to lose $2 billion. Oh, I'm so stupid. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.